The annual Walker family reunion was in full swing at Uncle Robert's sprawling mansion in the Hamptons. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway, Bentleys, Maseratis, and the occasional modest Mercedes. And then there was me stepping out of my Uber, much to my cousin's visible amusement. "Look who finally made it," Cousin John called out, raising his champagne glass. "Taking public transport again, Sarah?" I straightened my simple linen dress. Expensive but understated, nothing like the flashy designer labels my relatives wore like armor. "Hello, John. Still working for Uncle Robert, I see." His smirk faltered slightly. "Being vice president at Walker Industries wasn't quite as impressive when your father was the CEO. Sarah, darling." Aunt Patricia's voice dripped with false concern. "We were just discussing you. Still doing that, what do you call it? Consulting." I smiled, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server. "Something like that." The whispers followed me across the perfectly manicured lawn. 3 years had passed since I'd turned down a guaranteed executive position at Walker Industries to start my own business. 3 years of being the family cautionary tale, the Harvard MBA who threw it all away. "Did you hear?" Cousin Amanda stage whispered to her circle of designer-clad relatives. "She sold her condo. Lives in some tiny apartment now. Can't even afford a car." If they only knew that my tiny apartment was actually the entire top floor of a downtown high-rise, or that I'd sold the condo to fund my company's first major acquisition. "Sarah." Uncle Robert's booming voice cut through the chatter. "Come here, girl. Let's talk about your career situation." I made my way to where he held court by the pool, surrounded by his usual entourage of yes-men and social climbers. My father stood nearby, trying not to look embarrassed by his underachieving daughter. "Uncle Robert," I nodded politely. "You're looking well," he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Your father tells me you're still doing that independent consulting work?" "That's right. You know," he leaned forward, his expensive watch glinting in the sunlight, "Walker Industries is always looking for talented people. Even now we could find a suitable position dash." "Thank you," I cut him off smoothly, "but I'm quite happy with my current situation." John snorted into his champagne. "Happy? Living like a college student? Come on, Sarah, everyone knows you're struggling." I thought about the meeting I'd had yesterday with my executive team, about the documents waiting for signatures that would shake the very foundation of Walker Industries. But I just smiled and sipped my champagne. "Speaking of business," Uncle Robert raised his voice to address the gathering, "I have an announcement to make. Walker Industries is about to complete our largest acquisition to date. The Morrison Group merger will make us the biggest player in the tech consulting space." Applause rippled through the crowd. I checked my phone, noting the time. "Any minute now." "Sarah could have been part of this," my father added, unable to resist the dig. "Could have had a corner office, a company car, real success. Instead of taking Ubers," Amanda giggled. My phone buzzed. The caller ID made me smile. "Excuse me," I said, stepping away slightly. "I need to take this." "Probably a client who can't afford real consultants," John stage whispered, earning appreciative laughs. I put the phone on speaker loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Yes, David?" "Ma'am, the $200 million merger is complete," my assistant's crisp voice rang out. "Atlas Consulting now officially owns controlling interest in the Morrison Group. Would you like me to proceed with the press release?" The silence that fell over the gathering was absolute. John choked on his champagne, coughing violently. Uncle Robert's face went from red to white to red again. "The Morrison Group?" he sputtered. "But that's impossible. We're buying Morrison." I ended the call calmly, meeting his eyes. "Actually, Uncle Robert, you're not. Atlas Consulting is. And we have some interesting plans for its future. Sometimes the best revenge is served with a side of perfect timing." "This is a joke," Uncle Robert sputtered, his face turning an alarming shade of purple. "The Morrison Group has been in negotiations with Walker Industries for months." "They were," I agreed, taking another sip of champagne, "until Atlas Consulting offered a better deal. Better terms, better vision, better future." My father stepped forward, his usual composed demeanor cracking. "Atlas Consulting? That's your company?" "The very same little consulting business you've all been mocking for 3 years," I confirmed. "Though we're not so little anymore." The crowd of relatives had grown silent, their designer accessories and luxury watches suddenly feeling less impressive as they processed what was happening. Cousin John was frantically typing on his phone, probably searching for news about Atlas Consulting. "Holy shit," he whispered, staring at his screen. "Atlas Consulting. They're the ones who transformed Reynolds Tech last year. And Pacific Solutions. And, oh God." Amanda peered over his shoulder, her perfectly maintained facade crumbling. "But those were billion-dollar deals. Sarah, you're a successful businesswoman?" I supplied. "Amazing what one can accomplish while living like a college student." Uncle Robert had pulled out his own phone, probably calling his lawyers. I could hear him arguing in harsh whispers. "What do you mean it's ironclad? Find a way to block it." My own phone buzzed again. This time it was my chief financial officer, Lisa Chin. "Ms. Walker." Her voice was clear through the speaker. "The transition team is in place. Morrison's board has approved all terms. And..." She paused for effect. "Walker Industries shares are already responding to the news." I glanced at Uncle Robert, who was now watching his company's stock price plummet in real time on his phone. "Thank you, Lisa," I said. "Please proceed as planned." "You've ruined us," Uncle Robert growled, taking a threatening step forward. "Years of planning, millions in preparation. Ruined you." I laughed softly. "Uncle Robert, I just saved Morrison Group from a catastrophic merger. Your integration plan was outdated, your technology assessment was flawed, and your proposed restructuring would have destroyed everything that makes Morrison valuable. And you know better?" He sneered, but there was fear behind his anger now. "Actually, yes." I pulled out a tablet from my modest handbag. "Would you like to see the comparative analysis? The market projections? The innovation pipeline you completely missed while focusing on short-term profits." My father had sunk into a nearby chair, looking shell-shocked. "All those times you said you were busy with client meetings." "I was building something bigger than Walker Industries could ever imagine," I finished for him. "Something that values innovation over tradition, merit over family connections." The party had completely disintegrated now. Relatives were huddled in small groups, whispering urgently. The sound of incoming news alerts pinged from dozens of phones as the story broke across financial media. "Sarah," Amanda approached cautiously, her earlier mockery replaced with an ingratiating smile. "I always knew you were smart. Maybe we could discuss some opportunities." "Sorry," I cut her off. "Atlas doesn't hire based on family connections. But feel free to submit your resume through our HR portal." Just then a sleek black car pulled up to the mansion's entrance. My driver, yes, I had one, though I chose to Uber sometimes, stepped out holding a door open. "Ms. Walker," he called out. "The Morrison board is waiting." I turned to my stunned family, raising my champagne glass in a final toast. "Thank you all for a lovely reunion. I'd stay longer, but I have a merger to complete." The following week was a whirlwind of meetings, press conferences, and watching Walker Industries scramble to recover from their failed merger attempt. I sat in my tiny apartment, actually a 5,000-square-foot penthouse with a view of the city, reviewing the latest reports when my assistant announced an unexpected visitor. "Your father is here, Ms. Walker." I closed my laptop. "Send him in." He entered hesitantly, looking out of place despite his expensive suit. His eyes widened as he took in my home office, with its wall of screens displaying real-time data from Atlas Consulting's global operations. "This is where you live?" he asked quietly. "For now," I replied. "We're expanding to London next month. I might relocate temporarily to oversee the expansion." He sat down heavily in one of my visitor chairs. "Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me?" I asked. "When I started Atlas, I tried to explain my vision. You and Uncle Robert laughed it off as cute. Said I was throwing away my potential. We were wrong," he admitted, running a hand through his graying hair. "But the secrecy, the deception." "It wasn't deception," I corrected. "I never lied about what I was building. You all just made assumptions. Assumed that because I took Ubers instead of buying a flashy car I was struggling. Assumed that because I lived simply I wasn't successful. The Morrison merger," he started, "was the right move," I finished. "Look at these projections." I turned one of my screens toward him, showing complex charts and data. Walker Industries would have gutted everything that makes Morrison valuable. their innovation lab, their research division, all sacrificed for quick profits. He studied the data, his business acumen finally engaging beyond his wounded pride. These numbers, they're extraordinary. That's what happens when you focus on building something meaningful instead of just accumulating wealth, I said. Atlas Consulting doesn't just buy companies, we transform them. Make them better. Your Uncle Robert is retiring, he said suddenly. The Morrison failure. It broke him. I know, I replied. Atlas's board is considering making an offer for Walker Industries. His head snapped up. What? The company has potential, I explained. It just needs new vision. New leadership. You would buy us out? I would save the company, I corrected. Transform it into something worthy of its legacy. But only if the family agrees to step back completely. He was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. Finally he asked, that day at the reunion, you could have arrived in a luxury car. Worn designer labels. Shown everyone how successful you really were. Why didn't you? I smiled, remembering the looks of shock on their faces. Because success isn't about appearances. It's about substance. Everything I built while they were busy judging the surface. My phone buzzed. Morrison wanting to discuss the integration timeline. But before I took the call, I had one more thing to say to my father. You know what the biggest irony is? I asked him. All those years of family reunions showing off wealth, competing over who had the biggest house or the most expensive car. None of you were actually rich. What do you mean? He frowned. Walker Industries is worth millions. Atlas Consulting is worth billions, I said quietly. Real wealth isn't about what you show, it's about what you build. He stood up slowly, looking around my office with new eyes. Will you come to next year's reunion? Yes, I said. But not to prove anything. Just to remind everyone that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should be watching most carefully. After he left, I walked to my window, looking out over the city where I'd built my empire in secret. My phone buzzed again, this time with a news alert. Atlas Consulting Sarah Walker named Businesswoman of the Year, from startup to billion-dollar empire in 3 years. I smiled, thinking of all the family gatherings where they'd whispered about my failures, never realizing they were watching a success story unfold in real time. Sometimes the best way to prove your worth isn't by showing what you have. It's by revealing what you've built while no one was watching. And sometimes, just sometimes, success tastes sweeter when served with a side of humble pie at a family reunion.